Was that last quiz? Okay, note to self, make those quizzes a bit harder. Now anyway, the title of this chapter might have you a bit curious, so let's not delay any longer. First, let's take a quick step back to where I mentioned the 3 forms of communication. Do you remember? Traditional selling technique would be number 1, and that's where you're telling or presenting. It's like when you tell your partner, spouse, or kid that they need to do something you want them to do. What's the typical response? They don't want to, right? They avoid doing it. It doesn't directly benefit them. It primarily benefits you. Now remember, research has confirmed we are the least persuasive when we tell people things or we attempt to dominate, posture, or push them into doing something we want them to do. In traditional sales interaction where the salesperson is using the traditional model, the salesperson isn't really listening for the right things and is too anxious to pitch their solution as quickly as they find an opportunity they can. Does that sound familiar? So if traditional selling techniques taught by the gurus of telling, doing a sales pitch, presenting too early in the conversation are no longer effective in our time, then why are you still using them? If you're doing this, you will always get objections. You will always get rejected. You'll always play the numbers game because your selling techniques go against human behavior. When you tell or present your solution too early in the conversation, you will always have to keep working and grinding your butt into the ground to try and make a few sales to get by. Why would you ever put yourself through all that mental anguish? In other words, the focus is on your need to present your solution before even finding out if your prospect has a problem in the first place, or what's actually caused their problem, or how the problem's affecting them, and if they have desire to change their situation. And when you think about it, do you like being pushed into buying something or talk to someone whose only agenda is to get something from you? What do you do when that happens? Absolutely. These are the 2 typical things that happen 99% of the time. The prospect will either withdraw from you. That means they don't return your calls, they don't respond to your emails, they don't respond to your texts, your voicemails, or they throw out objections and they just flat out reject what you're offering and do it in your face. So to make sure you're crystal clear on this, let's do a 101 on presenting. A presentation is prepared talk or PowerPoint where you, the salesperson, attempts to grab your prospect's attention and to move them toward taking an action step using external motivation techniques, such as fear of loss or missing out, greed, guilt, maybe even envy. In a typical sales presentation, you're telling your story as if they should care. You're giving a sales pitch, putting pressure on them, and then assuming the sale, which according to the data is not very persuasive. When you present or tell your prospects about your products or services without first establish what their problems are, if any, or what's caused them or how it's affecting them, you automatically cause your prospects to do what? Well, they feel tension and they feel sales pressure. And what happens to most of your sales at that point? It just unravels. Your customers feeling pressure and tension. Do you really think they're going to be open to what you're offering? Think about it for a moment. What does a presentation look like in your potential customer's mind? Your meeting begins with a few logical-based questions you ask, and then you go into the pitch or the presentation, the PowerPoint. It begins with you talking about you and what you think and ends with you hoping that something that you said will trigger something that will get your prospects excited about what you sell. I call this hopium. Salespeople hoping that something they say will just trigger the person to want to buy. It's a drug that so many salespeople are on, and it's a very dangerous way to sell if you actually want to make a lot of money as a salesperson. Now, what's the problem with that approach? Yes, but why? Try again. Yes, but that's not what I'm getting at here. Try again. That's right, it's guesswork or just hoping it's going to work out. You're just going through all the reasons why you're excited about what you have and what you're doing and why they should be excited about your product or service as well. It's really like taking a bucket of mud, throwing it up against the wall and hoping some of it actually sticks. So again, back to your prospect's point of view. How do you think your customers feel when you're presenting or pitching to them? What do you think they're doing most of the presentation? Well, they, of course, do what you do when a salesperson is presenting to you. They're working out how to defend and protect themselves from you making them do something they don't want to do. And while they're doing that, do you really think they're listening to you? Hardly. They fear that you're going to persuade them to buy something they don't want or they don't need, and you're going to steal a bunch of their time. Hold up. Why is fear even part of the equation here? It's the automatic distrust today's consumers have come to adopt. Remember we went over that earlier? Now, all that being said, a good presentation is important. I want to make sure you understand that. But it has to be properly done and at the right time in the conversation. After you've established they have the need and you can actually help them solve their issues or their challenges. Especially with a very large group, it's harder to interact. Now, don't worry. We'll go over this in more detail later on in this training. So why do so many salespeople feel the need to present or pitch to their prospects so early in the conversation? Think about that. Why do salespeople present in this way if it's the least effective form of persuasion? Well, it's simple. Presenting is easy to do. Salespeople like to present what they think are the advantages and benefits of their products or services because they only have to learn it once and then they can just turn it out like it's on autopilot. In fact, it's so safe that it very rarely works with today's consumers, the modern day buyer. Presenting is familiar territory. It makes many salespeople feel like they're in control of the sale, when in all actuality, it makes you lose control of the sale. If you want to be in control, my suggestion would be let go of your need to even make the sale and instead focus on whether there's a sale to be made in the first place. Let me repeat that. Let go of your need of making the sale and instead focus on whether there's a sale to be made in the first place. Once you let go of the need to make the sale, it allows you to be far more open and creative with your customers. In your prospect's mind, they start to view you as the authority, what I call the trusted authority, because they feel that you're authentic with them. Instead of them viewing you as just another salesperson who's trying to stuff your solution down their throat, this is where the sale's made. It's made at the trust level. Now, your presentation is really only 5% of the sales process in the new model of selling. And it's very simple. It's based on knowing precisely what your potential customer wants, why they want it, and how it will make them feel. You can only know those things based on the questions you ask to uncover. And that's what we're going to learn in NEPQ. When you use the NEPQ model, your presentation will always be toward the end of the dialogue, right before you ask what I call committing questions to have them move forward and purchase what you're offering. You're making the sale. All right, just to make sure you're clear on all that, I've got another quiz for you. Do that, and when you're through, meet me in the next chapter.